Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in your walk with God where the ordinary no longer satisfies. There comes a moment when heaven interrupts your sleep, your schedule, your silence, because something divine is trying to break through. If you're listening to this right now, you are not here by accident. You are chosen. And when you're chosen, God won't leave you comfortable in complacency. There are moments in life when everything feels off balance, where no matter how much you try to rest, relax, or reset, there is an internal disturbance that refuses to be silent. You lay down at night, but your mind keeps racing. You close your eyes, but your spirit remains wide awake. You try to move forward with routine and logic, but something deeper within keeps tugging, keeps pulling, keeps whispering that you are meant for more. That right there is not anxiety. It is not coincidence. It is not overlinking. That is what happens when God begins to awaken someone he has chosen. It is divine restlessness, a holy disturbance that will not stop until you look up and recognize it for what it truly is. When you are chosen, God will not let you sleep through your purpose. He won't allow you to be numb to his call, nor will he let you live in spiritual autopilot. He'll stir your heart, interrupt your rhythm, and push on areas you've tried to ignore. That is because divine restlessness is one of the first signs that God is calling you into something greater. You weren't made for the sidelines. You weren't made to coast through life. You were made for kingdom impact. And when you forget that, or when you've yet to realize it, God steps in with the kind of divine disturbance that keeps you lie awake until you see what he's trying to show in Scripture. We see example after example of this kind of spiritual awakening. Take young Samuel, for instance. He was why God won't let you sleep, living in the temple, sleeping by the ark of God. But one night God spoke, and Samuel could not rest until he responded. The voice of God came to him multiple times, not in the daylight, not during a worship service, but in the quiet of the night. That's often how God moves. When you're chosen, he won't wait until you're ready. He'll interrupt you while you're lying down thinking all is well. Why? Because he knows you've been set apart for something sacred, and it's time you realize it too. You may be wondering why your peace has been disturbed. Why can't you settle down like everyone else? Why do you feel like something is missing even when things look good on the outside? That is because your spirit is awake. Even if your mind hasn't caught up yet, your spirit knows there is more. Your spirit knows that heaven is trying to get your attention. You can't sleep, not because of what's going on around you, but because of what's going on within you. That divine restlessness is proof that God has placed something inside of you that cannot be silenced by distraction or comfort. The more you ignore it, the louder it becomes. The longer you delay, the more intense it grows. This is what happens when God has something urgent to say to someone who has chosen. Many times we ask God to speak to us, to lead us, to show us the way, but then we're surprised when he actually does, especially when he does it by shaking us up. We expect God's voice to sound like peace, like ease, like clarity, but sometimes his voice comes through discomfort. Sometimes he speaks by shutting down what used to work. Sometimes he speaks by letting things fall apart so he can guide you toward what truly matters. The path of the chosen is rarely calm in the beginning. It begins with a fire in the soul that refuses to go out, and that fire often begins with a restless night. There is a unique pressure that comes with being called. You can't do what everyone else does. You can't settle where everyone else settles. You can't ignore what everyone else ignores. You are marked. You are set apart. And because of that, your sensitivity to spiritual things is different. You feel it when something's off. You sense when God is speaking, even if you don't have the full understanding yet. That's because the divine restlessness you're experiencing is tailor-made for your calling. It's not a burden, it's a signal. It's not a punishment, it's a preparation. Don't mistake your sleepless nights for weakness. Don't see your inner struggle as failure. here. What you're going through is a spiritual awakening. God is alerting you to the fact that the time is near, the time to act, the time to move, the time to step into who you really are, the time to walk away from the false comforts and shallow distractions, the time to say yes to the thing that keeps calling your name. In the quiet moments when God chooses someone, he will not allow them to sleep comfortably through the season of their calling. That restlessness you feel is mercy. It's grace. It's love that refuses to leave you where you are. So don't suppress it. Don't drown it out with busyness. Don't run from the stirring. Sit with it. Pray through it. Lean into it. When you feel disconnected from the world, let it break you if it has to, because what comes next will be worth it. The divine restlessness inside of you is evidence that your life is bigger than your current situation. God is waking you up because he's about to show you something that will change your life forever. When he does, you'll understand why you couldn't sleep. When God begins to move in the life of someone he has chosen, he often does it in ways that are unexpected. We tend to look for God in the miraculous and the loud and the obvious, but more often than not, God chooses to reveal himself through disruption. It's a sacred contradiction. He speaks not always in thunder, but through the storm. He doesn't always show up with calm clarity, but instead with divine interruption. That is why when you are chosen, you must pay attention, not only to what is being said, but to what is being done. So many people miss what God is doing because they only look for him in peace. They wait for moments of ease, of comfort, of stability, thinking those are the only environments where God can speak. But God is not limited by circumstances. He is not restricted to the sanctuary. He doesn't need a quiet room or a spiritual retreat to make himself known. He speaks through changes. He speaks through inconveniences. He speaks through what doesn't go according to plan. And for the chosen, these disruptions are often divine signals that something greater is being arranged behind the scenes. Take Moses, for example. God didn't speak to him when he was settled in the palace of Egypt. God waited until he was wandering in the wilderness. Then in the middle of his ordinary day, God disrupted his path with a burning bush. It wasn't just about fire, it was about interruption. Moses had walked past bushes before, but this one didn't burn up. It was different, and because it was different, it drew his attention. God used that disruption to speak destiny into his life. When you are chosen, the disruptions in your life are often doorways to deeper purpose. That job that didn't work out, the friend who left without warning, the opportunity that slipped through your fingers, all of these may have been divine setups to reroute you toward the will of God. But if you only see the surface, you'll miss the significance. If you only focus on the frustration, you'll miss the faith lesson hidden in the trial. Chosen people learn to interpret disruption as direction. They learn to ask not why is this happening to me, but Lord, what are you trying to show me in this? The chosen can't afford to ignore spiritual patterns. When God is trying to get your attention, he will disturb your environment. He will shake what you thought was stable. He will close doors you were convinced would stay open, and it's not because he's punishing you, it's because he's separation for elevation, prioritizing your purpose. Comfort rarely leads to growth. Sometimes the greatest act of God's love is when he won't let you remain where you were never meant to stay. Disruption is his way of moving you when you've gotten too comfortable in the wrong place. Think about Jonah. God told him to go to Nineveh, but Jonah ran in the opposite direction. He bought a ticket, boarded a ship, and tried to run from the presence of God. But the moment Jonah tried to rest in disobedience, God sent a storm. That storm disrupted the entire voyage, not to harm Jonah, but to wake him up. God disrupted his comfort to rescue his calling, and he will do the same with you. When you are chosen, you cannot sleep through disobedience. God will send whatever he needs to send to get your attention. Even in the New Testament, we see this principle. Saul was comfortable in his position as a persecutor of the church. He thought he was doing the right thing, but on the road to Damascus, God disrupted his journey. A light from heaven knocked him off his horse and blinded him. That interruption led to transformation. Saul became Paul, and Paul became a world-changing apostle. But it all started with a disruption. If your life has been marked by sudden shifts, unexpected transitions, or seasons of divine confusion, Don't be discouraged. That's often the fingerprint of God. He doesn't always lead through clarity. Sometimes he leads through closed doors. He doesn't always confirm with ease. Sometimes he confirms with resistance. If you are chosen, God will speak to you through what didn't work. He will teach you through the delay. He will guide you through the breaking. The very things that make you feel like your world is falling apart might actually be the beginning of it falling into place. God is not a God of chaos, but he will use chaos to bring you into calling. He's not the author of confusion, but he will allow confusion to clear your path. Don't be so quick to escape your disruption. Sit in it, learn from it, seek his voice in the midst of it, because while everyone else may see inconvenience, the chosen recognize instruction. And when you recognize that God speaks through disruption, you stop resisting what's being shaken and start receiving what's being revealed. The ones God chooses will never be allowed to stay stuck in what no longer serves their purpose. He will disrupt your plans to align you with his. He will interrupt your comfort to birth your calling. And when you begin to recognize the voice of God in disruption, you will no longer fear change. You will embrace it, knowing that every divine interruption is a setup for spiritual elevation. When a person is chosen by God, comfort is no longer the goal. Obedience, biblical examples of God's preparation, his purpose, and comfort are rarely found in the same place. And for those God calls into divine assignment, he will often require them to walk a road that challenges, stretches, and even disturbs their sense of ease. It's not because God delights in your discomfort, but because your comfort zone is too small to contain your calling. You cannot walk in destiny and cling to convenience at the same time. So when you're chosen, your life will often be marked by tension, the tension between where you are and where God is calling you. And God will allow that tension to grow until you realize that comfort must give way to calling. Many people pray to be used by God, but still want to stay in control of the details. They want the miracle, but not the movement. They want the breakthrough, but not the battle. They want to walk on water, but they also want to stay in the boat. And yet the call of God is not interested in your preferences. It's after your surrender. He doesn't consult your schedule. He doesn't ask for your permission when he calls you. He expects you to respond. And that response will often cost you your comfort. The disciples left their boats, their families, their trades, their plans, all to follow Jesus. He didn't offer them luxury. He offered them legacy. He didn't promise them ease, but he did promise power. They stepped into purpose by stepping out of everything familiar, that is. The price of being chosen, God will never force you, but he will confront you. He will place before you the undeniable truth that you cannot stay where you are and go where he's taking you. He will show you that what you're holding on to may be the very thing keeping you from experiencing his power in your life. When God places a calling on someone, that calling will begin to conflict with their comforts. The things you used to tolerate will begin to irritate you. The circles you used to fit into will no longer feel like home. The habits you once found harmless will suddenly feel heavy. This not you becoming strange, it's you becoming sanctified. God is rearranging your appetite. He's shifting your desires. He's pressing you out of old patterns and pushing you into purpose. The more he reveals your calling, the more he disrupts your comfort. Abraham had to leave his homeland without a map. Ruth had to abandon her past to walk into a future she couldn't predict. David was called from the field to fight a giant before he ever sat on a throne. Esther had to risk her life before she could save her people. Over and over again, we see a pattern. God's chosen don't live in the safety of their comfort zones. They step into the unknown, not because it's easy, but because God is there. If you find yourself in a season where things you once enjoyed no longer fulfill you, that's a sign that your comfort has expired. God will allow discomfort to increase until you can no longer ignore his direction. What used to be enough no longer satisfies because your spirit is growing and your calling is maturing. It's like spiritual growing pains. You can't stay where it's safe when your assignment demands that you move. And if you don't move willingly, God has a way of shaking things until you have no choice but to let go of the temporary for the sake of the eternal. This is why many people experience frustration during the early stages of their calling. It's not because they are doing something wrong. It's because they are trying to do something right while holding on to what God told them to release. You can't carry spiritual sensitivity and hearing God's voice, the old, and embrace the new at the same time. You can't walk into the fire of divine purpose while dragging the weight of personal comfort. The conflict between calling and comfort is real, and for the chosen, that battle never truly disappears. The more God elevates you, the more you will have to release. The more he shows you, the more he will require of you, and yet what God calls you to will always be greater than what he asks you to leave behind. Now, that's the beauty of divine tension. Though it feels uncomfortable at first, it leads to unshakable purpose. Though it requires sacrifice, it leads to supernatural strength. You may cry through it, wrestle with it, or even resist it, but once you step out of your comfort zone and into your calling, you will find a level of grace, joy, and power that you never knew existed. It's in that place of surrender outside of comfort where miracles happen. It's where healing flows. It's where vision becomes clear. It's where your identity is no longer defined by the world, but by the one who called you. That place, the uncomfortable place, is where you meet God face to face, not just as your savior, but as your source, your strength, and your sustainer. So don't fear the discomfort. Don't run from the tension. Embrace it. It means you're being stretched. It means you're being called. It means you're not meant for the shallow end of life. It means God sees something in you that's worth the risk. When comfort clashes with calling, always choose calling, because in that choice, you will find the very life you were created to live. There comes a moment in the life of every chosen one when they realize that what once fit them no longer does. It's not that something is wrong, it's that something has shifted. You look around at the people you've always been with, the places you've always gone, the habits you've always entertained, and suddenly they feel unfamiliar, too small, or even burdensome. This is not just emotional or mental change, it is spiritual. God begins to unearth your attachments to environments, relationships, and cycles that no longer align with the destiny he's prepared for you when you are chosen. You will no longer be able to fit where you don't belong, and you will not let you force your way back into spaces that were never built for where you're going. This shift can be uncomfortable. It can be confusing. You may find yourself asking, why do I feel disconnected from the people I love? Or why does a job I used to enjoy feel like a burden now? You may even grieve what's being left behind, but that grief is a signal that you're growing. God is not trying to punish you. He's preparing you. Separation is not rejection, it's redirection. He removes you from what no longer serves your purpose, so you can step fully into. What does the frustration you feel isn't failure, it's a divine warning sign that your spirit has outgrown your current assignment. Look at the life of Joseph. He had to be removed from his family to fulfill his destiny. Though the betrayal of his brothers was painful, it was necessary. Had he stayed in the same place, he would have never stepped into the palace he was chosen to lead, and that leadership could not be developed in an environment that resented his dreams. But through it all, Joseph kept growing, kept trusting, and eventually stood in the place God had shown him long before that process began, when he could no longer fit where he had been. When God calls you out of one season and into another, he doesn't always do it gently. Sometimes he makes you so uncomfortable in the weight of being chosen current space that you are forced to leave. He lets the conversations shift. He allows relationships to fade. He lets what once brought you joy start to feel like weight. These moments are not signs of defeat. They are indicators that you're being repositioned, and when you try to go back, it doesn't work anymore. It's like trying to wear shoes that are 2 sizes too small. You've outgrown what used to carry you. Many times, the chosen struggle in this season because they feel like something is wrong with them, but the truth is, God is simply making room for the new. He can't pour fresh wine into old wineskins. He can't bless the new while you're still clinging to the old. If you try to force yourself to fit where you no longer belong, You'll feel the conflict deep in your soul. Your peace will disappear. Your clarity will get clouded. That's not spiritual warfare. It's spiritual misalignment. When God is pulling you forward and you're anchoring yourself in the past, tension is inevitable. This is also why some people walk away from you without explanation. It's not always about betrayal. Sometimes it's divine editing. God will remove characters from your story who no longer contribute to your future, and it will hurt at first because you thought they'd be there forever. But you'll come to see that their departure was a blessing in disguise. You couldn't take them where you were going. They were attached to your history, not your destiny. You're not being abandoned, you're being advanced. And it's not just people, it's mindsets too. When you're chosen, God will begin to shift the way you think. He'll challenge old mentalities that used to govern your decisions. He'll push you to dream bigger, believe deeper, and act bolder. And when you try to live with old thinking in a new season, it'll feel like spiritual suffocation. What used to make sense will feel shallow. What used to satisfy will feel empty. This is the evidence that you're being transformed from the inside out. The reason you can't go back isn't because you're arrogant. It's because you're aware. You're aware of the calling. You're aware of the shift. You're aware that staying would mean settling. And that's something a chosen one cannot afford to do. God has revealed too much. He has stirred your spirit too deeply. He has shown you glimpses of your potential. And now that you've seen it, going back to smallness is no longer an option. So when you feel it's like you don't fit in anymore, don't panic, praise. That's a sign of spiritual progress. It means you're on your way. It means the old you is dying so the new you can rise. It means God is creating space for something greater. And yes, it may be lonely for a season. Yes, you may not be able to explain the shift to everyone, but the discomfort of transition is always worth the reward of transformation. God will not let you stay in a place that can't carry your purpose. You are chosen, and chosen people don't fit just anywhere. They fit exactly where God plants them. For kingdom impact. When God calls someone as his chosen, he does not just give them clarity about the destination, he gives them sensitivity to his voice. The ability to discern his guidance becomes a critical part of their journey. For the chosen ones, God won't allow life to continue in ignorance or spiritual deafness. He will begin to sharpen their discernment until they learn to recognize his voice in every situation. That is why once you are marked by God, you can no longer ignore the prompting of the Holy Spirit. You can no longer dismiss divine nudges as coincidence. He will wake you up in the middle of the night. He will trouble your spirit about decisions others take. How God trained you in isolation lightly, he will convict you when you try to go along with what seems comfortable. It is because he is fine-tuning your hearing for the sake of your calling. Sermon is not just about right or wrong, it's about right versus almost right. The chosen cannot afford to walk in assumption. What works for others might not be allowed for you. Where others have peace, you might feel unrest. Where others see opportunity, you may sense danger. That's not paranoia, it's protection. God is teaching you to hear beyond what's visible. He is pulling you into a place of deep awareness so you won't be fooled by appearances. It's because your assignment is too significant to be compromised by distractions or deception. He knows that your future depends on decisions made now, and he will not let you move blindly when he has already made provision for vision. In seasons like this, obedience becomes more important than understanding. God may speak something to you that doesn't make sense to your logic. He may tell you to walk away from something that looks promising. He may lead you into a situation that looks uncertain, but chosen people learn that clarity often follows obedience, not the other way around. God doesn't explain every detail up front because he wants you to trust his character even when you can't see his plan. It's about learning to walk by faith, not by sight. And the more you trust, the more clearly you hear. This is why many chosen individuals experience isolation. It's not always that people are against you. It's that God is setting you apart to strengthen your ear when you're surrounded by noise. It's hard to recognize God's whisper, so he'll remove the noise. He'll take you into quiet places where the only voice you can lean on is his. You may not understand why certain relationships fall away, why certain paths get blocked, but later you'll realize that those were the very things that gave you space to hear him more clearly. God speaks most clearly in the silence. Think about Elijah on Mount Horeb. After the whirlwind, the fire, and the earthquake, God didn't speak through the loud displays. He spoke in a still small voice. Elijah had to tune in beyond the dramatic to recognize the divine. And so it is with us. Many times we look for God in the big moves, the loud confirmations, the open miracles. But he wants to teach the chosen to hear him in stillness. That stillness becomes your strategy. That stillness becomes your strength. Discernment also helps you navigate spiritual warfare. The enemy does not come with a pitchfork. He comes as an angel of light. He disguises counterfeit blessings, manipulative relationships, and wrong opportunities as good things. Without discernment, you may say yes to what was meant to destroy you, but when God sharpens your ear, you begin to sense something is off. Even when everything looks right, you can no longer be fooled because your spirit is alert. That's why some doors close suddenly. God knows what you don't. That's why you feel uneasy around certain people. Your spirit detects what your eyes haven't seen yet. That's the gift of being chosen. You get protected through perception. This is not just spiritual theory, it's a practical reality. The decisions you make every day about who you connect with, what you commit to, where you invest your time, these all hinge on your ability to hear God. That's why he takes you through seasons where he trains your ears. He allows you to walk through uncertainty so you learn to lean in closer. He withholds certain details so you seek him more diligently, not because he wants to frustrate you, but because he wants to fortify you. Every time you obey a whisper, your trust in him grows, and every time you delay obedience, you feel the weight of disobedience because he won't let you settle. Where your spirit is convicted, eventually you begin to see that hearing from God is not about spiritual talent, it's about spiritual posture. Discernment before assignment, it's about being in position, being still, being surrendered when you wake up at night with something on your heart, when you feel the pull to pray, when others are resting, when your spirit feels uneasy in places that used to feel comfortable. That's God speaking. He's pulling you closer, not just so you can hear him, but so you can represent him accurately. Those who are chosen are held to a higher level of accountability, not perfection, but sensitivity. God gives them access to deeper instruction because he intends to use them for greater impact. But that means they must be willing to follow even when the path is unclear, to say no even when the offer looks good, and to wait even when they want to run. This level of obedience is costly, but it's also priceless, because when you can hear from heaven, you're never lost, even when you don't know the next step. You may be walking through unfamiliar terrain, but as long as your ear is tuned, your steps are ordered. That is the power of divine discernment, and for the chosen, it is not optional, it is essential. There is a weight that comes with being chosen by God. It's not always celebrated, it doesn't always feel glorious, often it feels heavy, because being chosen means being prepared, and God's preparation is never shallow, it is deep, it is thorough, and it is often painful. He allows trials not to crush you, but to shape you. He allows disappointments not to break you, but to build you. He allows closed doors not to deny you, but to develop your dependence on him. When you're chosen, your life becomes a tool in his hand, and before he uses a tool, he sharpens it. That sharpening process is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. You will not walk in divine power without first going through divine pressure. God does not waste pain. Everything he allows has a purpose for those he has chosen. Even the suffering is sacred. Even the tears are teaching tools. Even the silence is strategic. You begin to realize that nothing is random, not the betrayal, not the delay, not even the failure. It's all part of the preparation, and preparation always comes before elevation. You may be hidden right now, but hiddenness is where the anointing matures. It's where your character is refined. It's where your roots grow deep. The tree that stands tall is the one with roots that have been pushed low into the soil. So when God keeps you hidden, it's not rejection, it's construction. This is the season when many people give up because they mistake preparation for punishment. They think God is being silent when in fact he is being surgical. He is cutting away what cannot go with you into your next. He is removing relationships that would sabotage your destiny. He is stripping you of pride, impatience, and self-reliance. He is allowing you to feel what it means to have nothing but him. So when the time comes, you'll know how to carry something great with you. He's not doing it to hurt you. He's doing it to help you carry the weight of the call. Think about Moses. You are not alone. God is with you. Spent 40 years in the palace and 40 years in the wilderness before he ever stepped into the assignment of leading Israel. Why? His leadership is heavy because purpose is expensive, because you cannot deliver others if you're still entangled yourself. So God processed him, broke him, humbled him, and only then did he use him. Many people want the platform, but they don't want the process. But the chosen understand if you skip the process, sometimes the preparation looks like unanswered prayers. You ask God to open the door and he says, wait. You ask for a miracle and he says, not yet. That delay is not denial, it is protection. It's God saying, I love you too much to give you what your character isn't ready to handle. You may feel ready, but God knows what's really in you. He knows the pressure success will bring. He knows the temptations that come with visibility. He knows how pride sneaks in when applause gets loud. So he keeps you in the cave until the cave no longer breaks you, until the cave becomes the place where you worship, not just weep, until the silence teaches you that his voice is your strength. That is the making of the chosen. There is also pruning involved in preparation. Jesus said in John 15 that every branch that bears fruit, the Father prunes so it can bear more fruit. That means you can be doing the right thing and God will still cut some things back. Why? Because he sees your potential. Because good is the enemy of great. And because the chosen are not called to be average, they're called to be fruitful. So he cuts off distractions. He cuts off wrong motives. He cuts off old versions of you that can't carry the glory of your next level. It's painful, but it's proof that he sees something in you worth refining in this season. You may find yourself crying more, Quest, moaning more, feeling isolated more than ever, but don't misread this moment. This is the furnace of preparation, and the fire is not there to destroy you. It's there to purify you. It's burning off the fear, the pride, the comparison, the compromise. It's making sure that when you walk into your assignment, you don't just carry the gift, but you carry the heart of God with it, because the chosen are not just called to perform, they are called to transform. And that transformation starts in them before final words and call to faith happens through them. You may not be able to explain your process to others. It's okay. Preparation is private before it becomes public. God may be keeping you behind the curtain now because he's working on what the world will eventually see. Don't resent that. Embrace it. Trust it. Yield to it, because the more you surrender to the preparation, the more powerfully you'll walk in the promise. You will not miss what God has for you if you stay faithful in the season that feels forgotten. So when life feels heavy, when the nights feel long, when the doors won't open, when the prayers seem unanswered, remember you are chosen, and the chosen are always prepared before they are revealed. Stay the course. The weight you feel now is nothing compared to the glory that will rest upon you later. Keep going. This pressure is birthing purpose.